evening, Lord. We pray that you will be with us. Your Spirit will be with us in the name of Jesus. We pray that we will not do anything that is not necessary here tonight, but we will do the very important things here tonight. And everybody will be impacted in the name of Jesus. Both the speakers tonight and we that are here to listen to them and to ask questions will all go back from here fulfilled in the name of Jesus. Thank you, Father, for answer prayers. In Jesus' mighty name we have prayed. Amen. Please let's have a seat. Let's have a seat. So if you have questions as any of the speakers will be speaking, please write them down, because we're not going to take questions while they are here speaking. We'll allow them to speak and complete what they're saying, and afterwards we'll have time for Q&A, which we're going to be having 4 wonderful people to attend to our questions. So I want to invite Dr. Afolari Egbewande. With a round of applause, please. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm just trying to calculate the time that I have. Well, it's an honor to be here this evening. I know it looks like a lot of people here are not new to Nova Scotia or to Sydney. So I think I have to adapt whatever I had to say to kind of meet the need of everybody as much as possible. Like my brother said, my name is Afolari. I live and work in Ottawa together with my wife. I'm an engineer by training, and I've been doing that for a couple of years. So my doctor label, I prefer to put PhD when it's needed, actually. So it's just a doctor of books. I don't prescribe medicine, you know. Yeah, but it's an honor to be here. I was thinking about what to say, and let me just start to narrate my story. And maybe you find yourself in that story. Maybe, maybe not. We'll find out. You know, for the typical immigrant coming into Canada, I remember 21st of April 2015, you know, I embarked on the voyage, if I would say, packed my things up, threw some 1 or 2 suitcases in the trunk of the car. Luckily, my mother was there together with my cousin. They drove me to the airport together. Like the typical immigrants, some will shed tears, some won't. I didn't shed a tear. I don't know why. I thought, okay, I'm not ready to cry. I just want to figure out what's going to happen, then crying. But, you know, you say goodbye to everyone. That first trip from wherever you take up from, across the world, it's fine. You know, it's mixed race, and I hope it's okay to say this, hopefully. You know, it's a bunch of people from your country and a few from other countries. You know, you're living from your country. And then I found when I was on the flight from Toronto to Halifax, and you know, I've actually sampled people's thoughts about this, and I realized it's the same experience. That was the first time I looked around. I was the only black guy on that flight. It's never happened to me before. And then suddenly I realized, for real, man, I am black. And then, you know, you don't let that bother you too much, and you're thinking in your mind, I wonder what they're thinking about me. You just sit down there, you don't say a word. And you know, your culture shock, or let me say your system shock, will start from there, even on that flight. Now they're asking you, oh, do you want to eat this? And you're wondering, how do I pay for it? And they tell you, oh, we don't take USD, this is a local flight. Do you have a credit card? Sorry, I don't have one. I have a Nigerian one, can you take it? Like, is it MasterCard? Like, no, sorry, we can't take that. Okay, give me water. So you take your water and pretzel and you're good. And then you get in, and the same system does not fail to shock you. If you came with some food, I did not. I did not come with any food whatsoever. No spices, nothing whatsoever. I just came with a few clothes, and it's like, I figure out the rest. If you came with some food, it's a matter of time. I found, you know, people, you're going to deplete that thing quickly, and then you start asking, where do you guys buy food from? And can I buy this thing that I'm used to or that thing that I'm used to? And then you realize, it's actually very expensive. And then they tell you a bag of the Nigerian beans or something else is like $15. And then you change it to the local currency. And you're like, God forbid, not me. I'm not paying for that. So you're stuck. You might eat noodles for a while, a few times, eat potatoes, and then you get tired of it. And then you're waiting until probably you get that first job, and things could begin to get easier from there. And then you realize you need to get a credit card, and there's a credit score system that you need to understand. And every word they say about that thing flies over your head. You don't understand the thing. I remember sitting at the bank with this advisor, and I said, please don't tell me all this percentage, whatever you're saying. He said, are you not an engineer? I was like, I don't care. Tell me numbers. How much in dollars am I paying? How much in cents is it? And he's like, okay, let's use that example. So you get that system shock there. And I remember asking, by the way, where's the water from the kitchen going into? And then they say it's a sewer system. Where is it? Oh, it's underground. I'm like, oh, cool. What about the one from the toilet? Same place. Wow. You think the shock is going to stop there. You look at the orderly driving, especially if you live in Nova Scotia and not in Ontario. I think it's a lot more shocking there. It's maybe more relatable. And then you look at the driving in Nova Scotia and you're like, wow, people are not in a hurry here, especially if you're coming from a busy city like I was. Nobody's in a hurry. And people respect each other. They're just nice to each other. It's like you met at the stop sign. She wants you to go first. He wants you to go first. And then you're wondering, like, okay, I will eventually understand these people. And then you're told, you're not actually told, you get a root shock. If you came in the spring like I did. You thought it was going to be cold, but you didn't know it was that kind of cold. The people that came in the winter, God bless them. But then you come, I think it was like -3. The worst I've probably experienced before then would have been like 18, 20 degrees. And that was like super cold. So there was a shock. And you think your shock stops there, and then you're going to start with culture shock after then. And culture shock is like, it has no limits. Let me just point to one culture shock. Maybe you can all relate to this, and I will just go into the rest of the things I want to say. I thought I spoke good English. Would you agree? I speak good English. But then you realize I have an accent. No matter how well you speak good English and you start talking to people, especially when you talk to people from the interior Nova Scotia, they really say 1 billion words per second. And then you as a foreigner, you're like, pardon? And then you look around when it's a group of people and everybody just laughed and you're like, I don't even know what they're talking about. I didn't even hear it in the first place. And on some other occasion, it's just so cultural a joke. You don't get what they're talking about. And you just nod along. It's like, you're saying, can I get some water? And they tell you, fill your boots. Culture shock. And then you're wondering, how do I possibly navigate my life through this system? That was me. That was me. You will think you have things nailed before coming, but no. Let me cite an example of a friend. I was just talking to Sister Annie about that this evening. My friend thought, I'm just going to, typical what you've seen in movies. You just think that's going to be your life, perfect life. I'm going to come in and get a job, and once I get the job, he said, I'm going to rent a 2-bedroom apartment. He said, actually, a duplex, that would be the equivalent of a townhouse. You even come here and you say, a duplex. They say, what's that? Townhome, condo, detached? Then, no, the 2-bedroom duplex, that was what this guy planned to get. And he said, I'm going to buy a dog, get myself a dog, and I'm going to put the dog in my gated house. I'm like, bro, that does not happen here. And then he realized, no, you don't put dogs in gated homes here. That's what you do where you're coming from. Culture shock is real, and it could be a rude awakening. Sometimes it's a case of, what you buy versus what you get. What you had in mind is not what you actually experience when you come in. I take what I'm talking about, actually. I remember hearing the story of the CEO of Noom, Sajid Jang, I think that's his name. I was actually listening or watching a documentary about him. He's from South Korea. And, he was starting a business, and he said the first problem he had living in America was that he felt so inferior because of the way he spoke. Believe it or not, to the average Nigerian, I speak properly. It's like, oh, you almost sound like them, but I know I don't. But you come to that point that your confidence flies away. Don't even say a word when you show up before people. And I remember I was a teaching assistant in the school then. Goodness, I had to teach. And my knees are shaking, but I'm trying to fake it. Because I'm thinking, will they even understand my accent? And I remember somebody asked me a question in class once, and she just rapped through the question. Zup! So what did you say? And then she ran through it again. And I said, you know what? I am a foreigner. Can you slow down, please? And I could see she felt bad. That would take me to the first point. Learn. And don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to say you don't know if you're new. And in fact, I'm relatively about 10 years now, but I think I'm still not afraid to say I do not understand that. Especially when it comes to the way some of the things function within the system, especially taxation and even relating with people. People are describing their experience. Don't be afraid to ask, what does that mean? And you know what? I find Canadians like to talk about themselves. They like to talk about their experiences, their families, their pets, their travels. Don't be afraid to ask. That was what I found out. Ask that silly question. And I find the same thing applies in a corporate setting. Ask that silly question. I made this my watchword. If I sound silly, I will only sound silly once. I'm not going to ask you that question again. Once you answer me, I get it. Do not be afraid to ask. Learn. Take the posture of a learner. Take the posture of a learner. Now the question is diligence. How to attain intelligence through diligence. Don't forget that's what I'm talking about. I've told you my experience. How do you attain intelligence, especially in academics? Now, I did my master's in electrical engineering and a doctorate in electrical engineering. Of course, you got to be intelligent to do that. And some things will shock you also. Classes start from day one. I never experienced that all through university in Nigeria. Classes don't start on day one. But I found the first thing is start early. Whatever it is, start early. Even now that I work on projects at work, design projects, I find start early. Start in time. Don't wait until the final moments before you jump into that thing. Start in time. And let me say this, I am aware, that there are people who come into the country and you have families, you've had 10 years of experience doing what you were doing in Nigeria or in whichever country you come from. That is rough. I thought, I found it rough. I found people in that situation find it a lot more rougher than I do, or than I did. My first suggestion to you is prioritize learning. Prioritize learning. A certificate, let me say it like this. I find that for most people who've had industrial experiences, they just want to come in and get into the system and of course make money right away because you have demands, families got to eat, you have to pay for the rent, and before you know it, you convert that Naira notes that you come with or whichever currency into dollars and it's like nothing. In 2 weeks, you blow it away. And then you face the reality. But my first suggestion is prioritize learning. A certificate may get you a job within the system, but it's the knowledge you've acquired that is going to keep you excellently within that system. Actually, till date, nobody has asked me for my certificate at work. Nobody ever asked me. Sometimes I wonder, do they even think I finished school? Because nobody cares, actually. Of course, they take your word for it, and you better really be honest about it, because the system won't be nice to you if they find out you lied about that. But prioritize learning. A certificate may get you a job, but what you learn is what is going to make a difference in your life on that job. The next thing I will say is, while you prioritize learning, and I know it's hard, especially for families, you have to take care of your kids, and while you have to study, especially if you came in through the study route, you have to keep being in school to keep your immigration status, and at the same time, there's demand for finances. But still, prioritize learning. Do the schooling, not the Uber. You might have to do the Uber, but do not make schooling the secondary and Uber the primary. You know why I say that? And can I be honest? I have seen people like myself, people of my age, who started off with a wrong priority like that. They stay long having to do that, especially if you prioritize the acquisition of knowledge, having a good job, or building a career. Am I saying something is wrong with driving Uber? Not at all. But if that's not what you've determined to do in your goal, then prioritize what that goal is, not the momentary funds that come through the jobs that we do while we're getting by. The second thing I will say under that, how to achieve academic success, is that depending on the profession that you come from, try to understand the system. It still comes under learning. Some professions are regulated, some are not. I actually started off my doctorate in an unregulated system, but let me shock you. Even within the unregulated industry where I came from, there's still a subtle regulation of good practice. And if you break the regulation of good practice, which is not written anywhere, you will pay dearly for it. This is different from where we're coming from. You want to be intelligent within the system, understand what the regulation means about your job. I'm in an engineering field now, not too much of engineering. I think I do a lot more software than engineering. My wife's actually, she was doing power engineering. She has a background in power engineering. They deal more with codes. You better understand those things and that there are implications to doing your job right. There are legal implications, actually, and the system will penalize you. A lot of things slip under the carpets where we come from. I can say that without any fear. Nobody can challenge me for that. To the younger students coming in for undergrad, prioritize learning too. You have no excuse, actually. And I know tuition is high. Tuition is high. But if you want to justify your time and you want to move quickly in your career and in your job, prioritize that learning. Do the learning, not the Uber. Now, they so these, but do that job as much as you have to. And don't get me wrong, did it mean that I didn't have to? Come on, I was doing tearing down and pulling up at the gymnasium at Dalhousie when I came in. So I'm not talking as one who did not experience suffering. Goodness, I had to pay my credit card by withdrawing cash from my credit card to pay the credit card. I was that broke. So I'm not speaking as, I can't empathize with you. I truly, genuinely empathize with you, but I'm telling from my about 10-year experience now, prioritize that period for learning. My next point is redefine your definition for success. We come from a system that is almost a caste system. You know, it's hierarchical in economic achievement. Some are high up there, some are low down in the grave of poverty. You hardly find the middle class. The middle class has been wiped off. I was talking about that on my podcast recording lately, actually. And my heart sank when I thought about that there's no middle class where we come from. But redefine what success means to you. Let me be honest with you, and from the perspective of faith, success is not you being rich and everybody else around you is poor. That is not it. That is depravity. That is not actually caring about the people around you, the nation being built together. That is not success. Redefine what success means to you. What do you want to achieve? What does that thing look like? Nobody cares whether you drive an SUV or a sedan here. We care where we come from. But that is not success. What does it look like to you? Redefine it. And let me talk to you a little bit about Canada, and I will round up on this topic. There is no free food in Freetown, they say, right? And I know that dream in the mind, when you're thinking about immigrating and coming to a country like this, you're thinking about opportunities. And at the back of our minds also, we're thinking about abundance, plenty, lots of money. Let me shock you, not many have that around here. People are comfortable. I don't know the average household income in Nova Scotia. I live in Ontario. The average household income, I believe, is $83,000. I think Ottawa actually has a little lower than that. Nova Scotia, if I remember, I think it was like 47,000 USD. Last time I checked. So probably that's like a 50-something, 57,000 Canadian. Think about giving to Caesar what is Caesar out of that. You got to give the government your taxes as well. You're not making a lot of money. So, there's no free food in Freetown. Canada actually has a lot of crisis going on, which I am aware about. Housing crisis, which you're probably experiencing it in Sydney. I was told the average rental for homes in Sydney is about a two-bedroom is about $22,000. Like, how do people pay for that? There is housing crisis. There is productivity drop in the Canadian economy. Canada is actually not contributing as much to the GDP as the loan that is actually going out in housing. And that was because Canada shifted attention from productivity per head. When you compare it to the United States, for instance, Canada, the productivity per head is about 30% lower than the United States. And what that means is that you're going to have less resources in that economy. So in Freetown, there's no free food, folks. There's a housing crisis. There are limitations to expression in Canada, and that's well known. I was looking at the Epoch Times, their study recently, I think it's about 2 weeks ago. They were saying, to what extent do you agree with how you can freely express yourself? 87%, that's at the time I look at that data, said they do not agree with how freely you can express yourself. Whatever that means. But think about it, that is the country you have come into. I think I should be rounding up, right? I probably have a minute or so left. Pastor Samuel, am I? Okay, give me about 3 more minutes, folks. Is that fine? Is that fine? The final thing I will say to you is hold your faith dearly. Hold your faith and your value system dearly. Hold it dearly. I was doing a little diploma course when I was wrapping up my doctorate at Dow, and I remember talking to Parmjo Viola, who was a business strategist who was a mentor to me that time. And he said to me, I was asking him a bunch of questions about how business operates in Canada. And then he said to me, when I asked him those questions, he said, my first honest suggestion to you is hold your value system so dearly to you. Never compromise it. And I said, why? He said, you will go down your grave with regrets otherwise. I held that strongly to my heart. Hold your faith and your value system dearly. The family values where you come from, no matter what part of the world it is, where you have come into is totally different. And I know this may sound a little crazy, bad to say, that about 50% of marriages in Canada end up in divorce. That's way more than where we come from. I'm not judging anyone who has had to face that. Second marriages have 60% more chances of failing. Third marriages have 70% more chances of failing. The same thing for children. Top among the things that bother children, especially teenagers in Canada, is anxiety and depression. Alcohol and opioid usage. There's a crisis of that in Canada right now. Bullying and cyberbullying is the next thing. I can keep listing them, but I'm out of time. If you do not hold your faith and your value system so dearly, can you see that you will pay for it? You will pay the piper for it. Your children will be the sacrifice on that altar. Your home will be that sacrifice on the altar. I look at this data some time ago and I compared it with other cultures, even within the United States, for instance. One of the most stable families that you find in the United States is the Indian families. And I think that's part of the communal living that they have in that culture. Do not lose yours. Don't get stability of economy and livelihood, but sacrifice your family on that altar. Part of it also is the socio-cultural values here are different. And I won't go into the details of that. But one thing I will say also about that, try to learn it and understand it. Do you have to imbibe it? Not necessarily, but learn it and understand it. Look beyond your culture when it comes to your faith. Finally, if I look into biblical context, there was a young man who was the history says about 16 years. His name is Daniel in biblical context. Daniel chapter 1 in the Bible. He was captured and taken by King Nebuchadnezzar into captivity from Judah. And when he was going into captivity, the instruction from Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon at that time, was that bring the prim and the proper from the land, the one who stand potentials when they come to Babylon, to grow the economy, to serve before the king. Daniel, a young boy, was one of them, and he came into captivity. I talked about this briefly yesterday, and Daniel was told, here, we're going to prepare you to serve before the king. And the first thing is that this is the meal that we have to make you eat every day. But Daniel, together with 3 other Hebrew men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel spoke up. I was talking about this yesterday, a pushback. The first thing he said is, please, this meal does not actually accord with the kind of thing that I come with in Judah, where I come from. This food is probably sacrificed to an idol, or it probably does not accord with the Mosaic law. And then he said, please, may I actually, together with my men, eat vegetables only? And then the guy was like, the king will kill me. And then he said, no, can you try this with us for 10 days? Value system and faith And then he said, try us with this for 10 days. And after 10 days, they found that they were great. They were doing well. Then he said, okay, let's do this for the next 3 years that we have to go through this preparatory period. And after that, they were found to be more excellent than the rest of the men who came into captivity with them. You will pay for not pushing back against thought processes, prevalent ideologies, and sociocultural values that actually defy what you've grown with. Of course, learn the culture, but don't imbibe the things that will not profit you. Be like Daniel, who did his due diligence. He understood the culture. He was actually well educated in that culture. You would almost compare Daniel with someone who has a doctorate degree, actually. Another person like that in the scripture is Moses. Moses also went to Egypt, was trained in the palace of Pharaoh. But scripture says Moses preferred to have the affliction, the problems, by choosing the afflictions of Israel than enjoying the pleasures in the palace of Egypt. Have this mindset. Have this mindset. Let this thought be in your heart and your guiding principle as you go through life. Thank you.
Let's do it one more time for him. I think he did a very good job. All right. So I will just invite Emily, right? Yes, please. Please, a round of applause for her.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get my presentation here to present. Oh, it's okay, I know well enough. So what's something you said, thank you so much. Thank you for having me here today. Have any of you been to the library since you've come to kind of explore? Okay, so I'll tell you about it today. Something that you said, so my husband is from the UK, and many years later we still joke that we're divided by a common language. Because even though English is our first language, both of us, we still regularly say things to each other and either like laugh or just we don't know what the other person is saying. And I think when we went to go visit my relatives in Montreal, they found out that Daniel, they heard his accent, and they said, "Oh, can you say chicken? Can you say chicken?" And so he said, we looked at each other and he said, chicken, just as I'm saying it now. And they laughed, and we still can't figure out why they were laughing, how he said chicken. But occasionally we'll just say chicken to each other, so. So anyway, welcoming you to the library. Maybe the next one. Oh. No, it's okay.
Sorry about that. I just They will just try to check it again.
Oh, okay, okay. Do you want?
Yeah. Sorry about that. Recently in my country, it spoke a lot about where we came from. They had a general election, and everything was blamed on technical glitch. So that's what we're experiencing now. But I guess that's going to come up very soon so that we can enjoy your presentation. We would like to have everything from the beginning to the end displayed on the screen. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll get right into it. Again, I'm a librarian from the Sydney Library here. So Sydney Library is one of 12 branches throughout Cape Breton. We're also connected to every other system in Nova Scotia. So we're the biggest branch here in Sydney, and we're also tied with headquarters. And you can do next. So as I said, we're connected to all of the other libraries in Nova Scotia. So if you want a book, you're actually looking through about 1 million, close to 1 million resource. And the library, this is why I got to work in the library. So I believe really strongly in the library as a safe space for people. It's like this third space in our community. It's not work, it's not home. You don't have to buy a coffee to be there. You don't have to study to be there. You can just come in, you can take your kids, you can sit and look out the window, you can chat to people there, you can do anything there. Well, not anything, but we're pretty lenient. You can ask us anything, and believe me, people ask us anything, nothing. So if you're just looking for somewhere in the community, just come and ask us and we'll tell you. If we don't know, we'll figure out somebody who does know. So obviously you can access computers. We have Wi-Fi. It's one of the places in the community, obviously, where there's Wi-Fi and printing and scanning services, which people use a lot. There's free events all of the time. And for our events, I really want to say that we look to our community to say what they want from us. So if you want to see events happening in the library, things that are more familiar to you or like subjects that you're interested in, just let us know. Tara and Jeanette are the community coordinators, and they're so warm and friendly, and they'll chat your ear off. So, some examples of the events that we had was like a rookie reporter event for kids, and it was this 3-part series where kids would come in and they would learn, and they were learning about what you see in the news, how to report the news, how to tell a story, and it kind of taught children how to be a little bit more critical maybe of what they hear, not to take everything at face value. And it's just sort of really a fun way to do that because kids are, seeing themselves on television. Again, this safe public space for everybody, and again, people do ask us anything. So like I said before, now we used to be just Cape Breton Regional Library, and now we're Same Page. So we're connected with all of those other systems in Nova Scotia, except for Halifax. Halifax hasn't joined us yet, but once they see what a good time we're having, they're going to join, I think. So these are the other libraries. So what that means is just when you're coming in looking for a book, we could usually find it for you. If we can't find it in Nova Scotia, we can still find it out of province. So that's 55% of the Nova Scotian population. So it makes easy for people to find what they're looking for. Sorry, next one. I'm not saying next to you. I think this is what I've said. So it's one service, this one library card if you're traveling. If you don't end up staying here, if you end up moving to another community in Nova Scotia, you can take that same library card with you and get those same services elsewhere. Okay, next. There's no overdue fines. You know, I don't know if it's the same, if you have this association, but there was a lot of people that were scared of coming back to the library, or when they would come to the library, they would come back like this. Hi. They'd just say, I don't know how much I owe, but I'd really like to be here. But we'd have to say to them, no, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. You don't have any overdue fines. You know, we don't have any Goonies or whatever that we're going to send after you. You're welcome to be here. We don't know any reason for people not to come through our doors. So we have a sort of simplified services. There's no borrowing limit. There used to be a borrowing limit of 100 books, and there were a lot of kids that pushed that limit. But now we don't have to say no to them anymore, so that's kind of good. We can go next. So most items that you get from the library circulate for 3 weeks. So some kits maybe that don't, but because they're more popular, like we have, if you don't have Wi-Fi access right where you're at, or you're waiting to connect it, you can actually get Wi-Fi hotspots from the library, so that'll help you kind of connect to other services of the community a little bit easier. It automatically renews your loan, so you don't have to call us and say, you don't have to be too worried about something that you have coming back, because it usually will automatically renew. Okay, we can go next. And it's also connected us to the system called, again, this is what it would look like if you are going into our system. And I don't know if you're familiar with Goodreads or something, but basically it's this now a forum where we can create lists, we can comment on each other's lists and what they're reading. There's some people in the community that share lists with each other of what they're reading, so if you found something you like, you can go and look through it. And you can just place your holds doing that as well. You can do next. And these are lists that are curated from across the province. And you can go in and make your own lists. So if you see yourself not represented there in some way, you can go make a list. We usually look through them, and sometimes we highlight them for the community. Okay. So one of the things that you get with your library card is a digital library. So I think the library things is more interesting, but I'm going to take you to that soon. But the digital library, so basically, with your library card, you have access to an app called Press Reader. With Press Reader, you can get access to newspapers and magazines from around the world in different languages. With Canopy and Hoopla, you can get TV and film for free, so it's like Netflix, but for free. Canopy has a lot of foreign and independent films. Hoopla, strangely, has a lot of British series, if you're into that, if you're interested, but Hoopla also has audiobooks, ebooks, magazines, and graphic novels. There's also a really good collection for kids' films on Canopy, and on Hoopla there's also a really good collection for graphic novels, because I know sometimes for kids when they're starting to read, graphic novels are maybe like a little bit more accessible to them because there's more pictures, can be a bit more engaging. I think I'm rushing through this. The big one that most people use here is called Libby. And Libby is kind of our core collection of ebooks, audiobooks, something you can listen to while you're walking or doing housework or something. And you can use this on your phone or you can use this on your computer. So that's kind of our digital library, all for free. Everything that we offer at the library is free except for printing, unfortunately. And this is our library of things. So I already mentioned we have that Wi-Fi hotspot which you can connect. But we have this like large collection of DVDs, but now we have DVD players that you can take out so you can watch all of those DVDs. A lot of people don't have DVD players now. We have like a home theater thing. So if you get a DVD and you connect it to the home theater, you can put it on a wall. We've done a few events with that. We have tennis rackets, light therapy lamps. You were talking about not experiencing the cold and the dark in Canada before. So the light therapy lamps might help you through the winter if you're feeling a little blue. We have snowshoes, so you can kind of explore with them. We're working on getting YMCA day passes and skateboards. And so we keep adding and adding and adding to the collection. Our most borrowed items are Chromebooks and iPads, because we have those to lend out as well. So that's really good because people can just come in, get a Chromebook, work on an assignment for a few weeks, and then bring it back in. And we have a lot of them. We're getting more of them too because they're so popular. Okay, so I said this, iPads and Chromebooks. So all you need to access any of this is your library card. It's all for free, and we're always there to help you set it up, to do anything that you need to do with it. These are our program coordinators. Look how friendly they look. That's Tara and Jeanette. I'm telling you, they want to hear from the community. They want to hear from people who like want events. We have one program room, so we are limited. We need a new library, but we still do our best. So recently we've had 3 clothing swaps, which have been really great events. So there was a back to school clothing swap. There was a summer clothing swap. We're thinking of doing a Halloween clothing swap, so like a costume swap kind of thing. We have lots of programs for kids. If you want to come into the library, the Sydney Library, every Saturday, I think it starts next Saturday, but you can just check the website. It's called Super Saturday. So Super Saturday is from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. Every single Saturday, there's events set up for kids. Every Saturday, it's a different theme. It could be like Legos. It could be a theme associated with like a television show that's big now. Sometimes there's food. There's always snacks. There's always like granola bars. Okay. We'll open the fridge for you. Yeah, so there's things like that. We obviously do class visits, craft programs. There's some regular family story times coming up, whichever's, they're really popular. Puppet shows with 2 insane people I work with who are very funny, and they work really well together. There's like the very serious one, and then my coworker who acts as the lion, and it's fun. It's funny for adults and kids too. So the kids are screaming, laughing, and the adults are kind of like laughing as well. So it's always a good time to go to those. Next one, sorry. That top picture there is, it's a bit sad this year because the weather hasn't been great, but we have a community garden. So the community garden, if any of you are gardeners, we will welcome your help next year to get it going. But again, you can go in, you can take care of any of the plants there, you can pick any of the plants there. There's like Swiss chard, tomatoes, beans, all kinds of things like that. Just we want to build it out a little bit more as a space that people can be in. This one was really great. There's an event pictured, I think on the previous slide, but that's okay. It was an event that was showing kids what camping's like in Canada. Basically taking families in and saying this is camping in the parks, basically. And people had lots of fun because, it was kind of like a camp out. They had the tent all set up there. And that is, I think pictured is one of our clothing swaps. And every year we have a knit-a-thon, which is really popular. The knit-a-thon, all the money for the from the knit-a-thon goes to supporting kids programming. And it's really, really well attended. So every Saturday or every Friday, we have a group that it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger every week. It's people coming in. And just knitting, crocheting, doing fiber arts together. There is food. There's always food. Sometimes we sneak in to see what there is. And they just always seem to be having such a great time because they're laughing and carrying on. Yeah, open to all. So that was a lot. Any questions or? Okay.
Thank you. I like the food. So I'll come if there is food. So Rebecca, you coming next or Danny? Rebecca. Please let's put hands together for Rebecca from CBICI.
How are you? Good. Hello, beautiful people. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Rebecca McDonald. I work at the Cape Breton Island Center for Immigration. I work with Sonieri, who is one of the, I don't know, would you say like pillars of the church? She's like, seems like she's got her hands in everything, right? But very involved with the church here, and really lucky to be working together with her. So yeah, I don't know if it's up there yet, but I'll just keep talking and it'll come up eventually. The Cape Breton Island Center for Immigration is a settlement services agency. We are dedicated to welcoming newcomers to the island and supporting folks in whatever ways they need as they're settling into the community, connecting folks, advocating for folks, referring folks. We have lots of in-house services. Yeah, you're good? Oh, look, and you can see it right up there. My gosh. We were founded in 2016. Can you go to the next one, Sonia? Thank you. We were founded in 2016, and we're a division of Nudon Enterprises. And Nudon Enterprises is a community development corporation that its goal is to establish a vibrant and self-reliant community. And so providing services like this, they also provide affordable housing, they provide home care services, they do community development education, and also have immigration services. So we're kind of under that umbrella, which is great because it gives us access to other folks who do other things, and we can collaborate. We are, that picture is not where we live anymore. I'm sorry. We moved in July. I updated our address, but I didn't update the picture. That's where we used to live, on Charlotte Street. Yes, and we moved to 37 Nepean, just in July, into the old City of David Church. So you left us a really blessed space to be in, so thank you. We are funded by a couple of different funding streams. We have provincial funding for settlement services, but as some of you might know, anybody who's a student, provincial funding doesn't provide settlement supports to international students. And Nudon just said that's ridiculous. International students do so much for our community, so we must do for them as well. And they went to ACOA, which is a federally funded economic development agency, and said, come on, let's do this. And so we can provide settlement supports to essentially any newcomer that arrives in our community. And we think that's really important because people should be able to access those kind of supports as soon as they arrive in our community. You can go to the next slide, Sonieri, please. Oh, no, sorry. So I'll just kind of run through super quickly a list of our services. We provide services around healthcare, so we can help you get your MSI card. We can help you get on the I Need a Family Doctor list so that you can have access to virtual care, which is really helpful if you don't want to wait in the emergency department for hours and hours and hours to see service. Our healthcare system is, in a difficult position right now. It is improving, and I think folks are working really hard to improve it, but there are options and supports that you would likely have access to, so we can help you find the information on those, get signed up, transportation, bus routes, how to get around, financial literacy. So we do like a credit rating workshops. We do workshops on banking for newcomers. We do first aid and CPR workshops. We do workshops on entrepreneurship and business development, cooperative development. And we are always asking, we always do feedback forums afterwards to say, like, what do you want to see? And we've been able to take lots of inspiration from what people want to see and do workshops based on what they're telling us they would like to see. But we do all kinds of different workshops. We run a tax clinic every year, a free tax clinic that is staffed by volunteers that are CRA trained. So, come March, come see us, sign up. We have a really lovely little old British lady, and she's got the most beautiful accent, British accent. What's that? Well, and she has a lot of chickens. She's a chicken lady. So, but anyway, she's been with us for a number of years doing this for folks and is very experienced and really lovely. So come and get your taxes done for free. As long as they're not too complicated, like if you own a business, we probably can't help you, but if it's a fairly simple filing, we can get that done for you. We can help with government applications. Make sure you have all the information that you need to extend your study permit, get a postgraduate work permit, all of these kind of pieces. We do a lot of community engagement, so we really try and bring different communities together and help people make connections with the local community, with other communities within Cape Breton. So that looks like maybe socials. We have a lot of socials. We have games nights. We have potlucks. And the potlucks are awesome because you will eat dishes from 8 different countries in one day. And what better way to get to know each other and connect than break bread, right? And there's always kids running around. So come to our next potluck and bring your kids. I bring my kid. We have a really good time. We have an English class that is accessible to folks. So if you want to improve your English, you can sign up. There is a waiting list right now, but you can sign up and get your name on the list to start English classes if you're looking to improve your English. We can help with schools, getting settled in schools, recreation opportunities. We are certified to do settlement plans through the Atlantic Immigration Program. That's like an immigration stream. So if you need to get your settlement plan done, let us know. We will help you with that. And then employment and business supports, I kind of talked about that with our workshops. We're always having workshops with CBDC, with the Cooperative Council of Nova Scotia, making sure people know what are the regulations and rules around starting a business, what funding might be there, those kind of things. So essentially, I feel like I loved what you said, ask us a question. Come and ask us a question. If we don't know the answer, we're going to find someone who does, and we won't stop until we do, right? So one thing that is really cool about CVICI is that we have our international student retention program, and that is very unique across Canada because IRCC federally and Nova Scotia provincially will not provide settlement supports to international students because you're a temporary resident. So we are able to do that, and we don't just provide settlement supports. We also provide opportunities for international students to connect with the community, with local employers, to really kind of set down roots in the community. You can go to the next one, Sonieri. Some of the things that we do that are kind of a little different and pretty cool, we do community activities and cultural tours. So, for example, we had a group of folks go to Member 2 Heritage Park to do a tour of the park, learn about the history of Member 2, which is a Mi'kmaq community, and on whose unceded land we're on today, to do, a Dreamcatcher workshop, learn about the history, learn about the living culture of the Mi'kmaq communities in our area. The second picture is we went to the Bayard Trail. Has anybody been to the Bayard Trail? No? If you want to go for a really nice peaceful walk, the most beautiful place you can go, and it's on the bus route. It's very near, it's right centrally located in Sydney by Sherwood Park Elementary and on Cottage Road. So we went with one of the guys who's been kind of taking care of those trails for decades, and a group of students got to hear from him about the biodiversity of the area. We went for this beautiful walk through the Washbrook, and you're walking along the stream, and so I know some students then ended up volunteering with the Bayard Trail Association, and there's lots more that we do. That's just kind of a couple of small examples. Can you go to the next one, Sonieri, please? And this is kind of what I think is the most exciting part of what we do, is student-led events. You will see that this is the Nigerian Students Association having last year's gathering. What? Was that the Independence Day? Oh, I thought it was the Nigerian Students Association, I'm sorry. That was for an event for Nigerian independence, but we also did have a massive event that the Nigerian Students Association put on at our office. We want folks, we rent out our office for free. We want folks to come in, have events, we have baby showers, we have movie nights, we have networking workshops. All of these are led by newcomers in the community, which is so cool. Like next Saturday, there's a baby shower. The weekend after that, a couple of weekends after that, the Nigerian Students Society of CBU is going to be having another get-together, right? We want our space to be your space, and we want to make sure that folks know that is a space that's accessible to them, right? And our new space is very beautiful, so come see us and check it out. Then Island Employment Tours, that's like kind of a big chunk of what we do in the international student program. We take groups of international students to different regions of Cape Breton, so different counties, Victoria County, Inverness County, to meet with employers, but we also do something fun as well. So for example, we go every year pretty much to Ski Cape Smoky, and we meet with their HR, talk about what summer employment opportunities there are. But then we go snowshoeing on the top of Smoky Mountain, right? Because the employment part is cool, but like you also need to get to know the island and see if you like it. And you know, a lot of these kind of things can be somewhat inaccessible. So it's also an opportunity to try out stuff that maybe folks might not otherwise get to try because, you know, it's like almost 2 hours away in Ingonish. So, and we've had lots of folks gain employment through these, summer employment, full-time employment, and it just shows you the different communities of Cape Breton and what there is there. There's a lot more out there on Cape Breton Island than just Sydney, right? So we also do governance sessions. This is a session that we had with Mayor Amanda McDougall. We had a dinner with students and the mayor. She kind of presented on her experience, which was really interesting because she, as our first female mayor, did not have an easy road to get to be the mayor. And she had to kind of battle her way to that seat. So kind of talked about her story, and then students were able to convey what are the issues that they're facing on a regular basis, right? And what do they want the municipality to do about it based on what the services that the CBRM offers. So we do that pretty regularly, and we're going to start doing that with provincial representatives, our MLAs, as well as our MPs. And then this was our snowshoeing trip on Cape Smoky. We just want to introduce people to the beauty of Cape Breton. It's a really beautiful place. There's beaches, there's these kind of hidden treasures like the Bayard Trail that is right in town, like totally accessible to all of us. That sometimes you just need someone to like connect you with it. And then you're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait to make better use of that. We went and did beach volleyball on Dominion Beach this summer, just in August, which was a really great time as well. And then we do social events. I kind of mentioned them before. We do games nights, we do paint nights, we do we had an art collage night, just because, you know, everything is in business. Like we also have to have time to connect and be together in a way, in a more informal way. Just, you know, it's good for your mental health. You sit down and like play a board game with someone, right? And have a chat. And then, finally, Hello Cape Breton is our island's biggest annual multicultural festival. It's coming up on October 28th. We have a headliner, musical guest, Aquaculture from Halifax, who is like a hip-hop R&B artist, really incredible artist, and we're really excited to welcome him and his band. There'll be performances all day. There's kids area. It's a really family-friendly event. We will have all kinds of different food vendors. So if anybody's interested in volunteering, let me know. And otherwise, I would just hope everybody would come and join us for the day, because it's a really fun, exciting day. It helps to foster some really great connections in our community. Oh yes, thank you, Sonia. I'm getting my prompts over here from Sonia. We are having, for the first time ever, a kids fashion show. So you can reach out to Sonieri. There'll be prizes to be won. We'll be doing a draw at the end of the show, but it's gonna be like, come on, we're all gonna be in tears. These adorable children like toddling across the stage in their dresses. going to be so sweet. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff going on. It's going to be at the Cruise Pavilion off the Esplanade where the cruise ships come in. So a nice big space in which to do it. And we don't have to worry about the weather this year, which is nice. So, and yeah, I think that's it for me. I'm sure I've missed some things, but yeah, I will be ready for questions after Danny.
Thank you. Let's put our hands together for her. Your phone. Your phone. Oh, can I have it?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Rebecca. We started engaging you from last year. And now we have Emily from the library. And I hope that we can have you even next year also. We're not done for tonight. Just so before I go to the last speaker, Danny from Cape Breton Partnership, we started engaging them, Cape Breton Partnership, from 2020 actually. So that was in the days of Tyler and Omar. You know, so I've had them in church and speak to people as well during this kind of a program. And it's always good to have them. And I know that they are rushing tonight because of time. But please write down your question, and I mean any question that you have that borders on immigration, jobs, and she talked about, there's a part that you talked about I would like you to, maybe during the Q&A session. You said that from the provincial government, there is a grant to settle newcomers, right? But that's not really for international students. But it seems you said something like there's an upgrade to that. I don't know. Like an upgrade to that. Maybe you have a program for international students now. Okay. So maybe somebody will ask questions about, if they don't, I will ask. So we have this piece of paper going around now. And I think Folari said something that I quickly want to refer to, even as this paper is going around. Remember, don't forget your culture. Now, you have phone numbers here that you can reach out to in case you have any help, need for help rather. You have teen line rape or sexual assault, domestic violence, sexual abuse, child abuse, the police, the paramedic, emergency medical services. You have all kinds of things there. I'm happy because there is a place just about 5 lines to the end of it. It says religious or spiritual support. So you can by yourself put our church phone line there. 902-919-4497. So you can write that by yourself. I didn't want to do that because this is from an organization, so I wouldn't do that. But this piece of paper is for you now, so you can write that there for yourself. So remember what Folari especially said, don't forget your value system. Oh, don't just think, oh, there is an issue and then you just pick up your phone. You know, at least you can always reach out to me. You can reach out to the church here before you take, if it is not a life-threatening situation. All right? So I was going to say praise the Lord, but I just realized we're in a seminar. No, I'm not a pastor today. Like, okay. So Danny, please put your hands together for Danny from Cape Breton Partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. So the Cape Breton Partnership is a local not-for-profit economic development organization. So we're not as fun as a library, and we're not as fun as CBICI. We don't knit, we don't have puppet shows, I don't take you on tour, but I hope to be able to provide you with some valuable information. I just thought I'd start there. I'm going last and we're kind of dull, but it's going to be great. You can put the next slide on. So my name is Danny. I am an immigration engagement coordinator with the Cape Breton Partnership. So I do these seminars a lot as I do connect with the newcomers to be able to provide them with the best information that they can for their journey here in Canada. So I do consultation meetings with employers and newcomers to identify the options for the different PR pathways in your journey here in Canada. I can answer questions on eligibility and required documentations, and I help support the AIP program and the Nova Scotia nominee program. So if that's kind of your journey, after you finish school or after you qualify, I am a resource and I'm able to provide you with that information. Next slide. I always start with this slide, and I think it goes back to the very first speaker here, that almost 100% of Canada's net growth population will be through immigration by 2035. and that's Canada. So here in Nova Scotia, we're going to be competing for newcomers even more so. The population is declining. There's not enough people being born, so immigration is going to be so important to be able to kind of help the economy and the prosperity of growth here in Canada. I'm going to do a super quick immigration lesson. So everyone here, are you on study visas or work visas? And no permanent resident? Is everyone here kind of be going through the immigration stream at some point in Canada? Yes? Okay, I just want to make sure, because if not, there's no point in saying all this. Is anyone familiar with the Atlantic Immigration Program? Yes, no, maybe so? Okay. So it is a federal initiative to bring newcomers to Atlantic Canada. We want to grow our population here. So it is Nova Scotia, PEI, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland. So what it is a two-step process. So it starts with the employer being designated. So the employer notices that they do need to fill their vacancies for their labor market. And they also see the need and the value that newcomers bring to their organization. So they apply to the provincial government to be designated employers. After that, you as an employee working for this designated employer, the employer endorses you. So they endorse you to the provincial government saying, hey, I really feel that this person should become a permanent resident. And then the province of Nova Scotia says, yes, we also want them to become a permanent resident. So then you would apply federally through to the IRCC. So it is a process. It's a quicker process than the Nova Scotia nominee program because this program that was a pilot that became permanent in 2022, it's a little bit quicker. So right now the Nova Scotia nominee program is about 17 months for a federal wait. The AIP program is 9. So there is quite a bit of a difference, but you need to be working for that designated employer. And you can see on my screen here, I'm not going to go through all the eligibility. You can definitely make an appointment with me and we can chat about it. But there's lots of moving parts in order to get that application in to become endorsed by the province. You can flip the next screen. Nova Scotia nominee program. So if your employer is not a part of the AIP program, which is just fine, you can become nominated by the province to apply for your federal PR through the Nova Scotia nominee program. There's 8 different streams, and I think there might be 9 different streams that I'm not going to go over today, but depending on exactly what your occupation is and what your tier level is where you're going to be able to apply for the Nova Scotia nominee program. So what happens is you collect a little bit of information from your employer, and then you yourself would apply to the province to become nominated, which in turn you take that application and go for federal. So it takes a little bit longer. The candidate's responsible for it, but the end result is going to be the same. Next. So that was a super quick immigration lesson, but again, you can come and see me and I can talk more, or I can answer any questions in the question and answer period as well. Other supports for newcomers that the Cape Breton Partnership has, we have the Cape Breton Job Board. So I always say that this is like Indeed, but strictly for Cape Breton employers and Cape Breton jobs only. So if you are looking for employment on the island, you go to the Cape Breton Job Board, you're only going to see Cape Breton jobs and Cape Breton employers that were approved personally by us. So Indeed filters in all those ads from Toronto and Vancouver, the sponsored ads, but this is strictly just a home-based job board. You can go next. Perfect. The Cape Breton Connector Program. So we're super excited to have Ocean in our connector position now. He just started. He is so great. He is killing it. I don't know if anyone knows Ocean. He was at the farmer's market. He's from Toronto. He moved here. He fits in so well with us, so we're so happy to have him. So he is our new connector coordinator. So what the connector program is, you're only eligible for the program if you're within 6 months of graduation, or you're a newcomer to the area on a work permit, or you're a newcomer from the area, a Canadian citizen that's new to the area, that's still considered a newcomer. So what this does is you would go to Ocean, you would have a consultation with him. He would talk about what you took in school, what your career goals are. They can help you with your resume, help you with your interviewing skills. And he would put you in touch with what we call a connector. which is an industry professional that's already established in that field. So it's about building networks. So you would have a conversation with that industry professional who would then would in turn introduce you to their contacts and their contacts. So it's building webs of networks to hopefully at the end secure a job for you in the field that you want to do after graduation. The Welcome Network. So the Welcome Network, again, another support we have for newcomers. So it is it's a group of local volunteers and welcome groups across the island that make newcomers feel like home in their area. So we do have one here in CBRM. We have ones all across the island, and they do lots of great things. They host, maybe they do probably do the most fun here at the partnership, because they do host storytelling sessions. They go curling. They're anywhere that has a fun time. The Welcome Network is usually there, but it is volunteer-led. And if you wanted to volunteer with the Welcome Network, just let me know. We go next. I am not the Welcome Network coordinator. It's Jessica Fogarty. Her information is there, but it's super easy to email her. It's welcomenetwork@theCapeBretonPartnership.com. Next. So this is Welcome to Cape Breton. So if anyone wanted to scan that QR code, it's going to bring you to our website, and it's kind of your Coles Note version of everything that you want to know about being in Cape Breton. If you want to stay, if you want to study, if you want to live, if you want to invest, anything at all, this is your website, because it's a really good tool to kind of show you what Cape Breton has to offer, because basically right now Cape Breton is selling itself to newcomers. We want you here, but we also want you to stay here. And I believe that is my last slide. Thank you for your time. That doesn't sound good. I'll give that to you.
Danny, where's your phone?
My phone?
I was thinking you would also just drop your phone, like Rebecca did. All right, let's put our hands together for all these people, starting from Folarin to Emily, to Rebecca, and now to Danny. What a wonderful session we had with each of them. So we're going to go into the Q&A. I want to believe that we've all written our questions. So I'm thinking what format that this is going to be. Can we have microphones, please? All the microphones. How many of us have questions? You have questions? Oh, nobody? Oh, wow, that's nice. We can just close. So we have just one person. Okay, can we write our questions so that, questions will not start giving birth to questions? Someone is asking question and then it starts giving birth to other questions and all that. Okay, so where are the microphones, please? You have them, okay. Or you want to do, so we have just one question. You have a question, that's 2, 3. Who else has a question? You have a question? Okay, so we have about 4 questions now. I do have some questions too anyways, and so who wants to go first? So you please, if you can just come out here and ask your question, or since we have the microphone, you can stay where you are and ask your question. And if you have any preference of who you want to answer your question, you can also just mention that, so that such person out of the moderators can just come out and then give answer to your question. So let's get started, please. Who wants to go first? Let him go first. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Yomi Aliu. I'm from Nigeria, West Africa. I came in meeting Mr. Folarin. I'm sorry, with our culture, I won't be able to call you by first name. And he was talking about the exact things I'm facing right now. There's a young man I'm actually working with now, and the first time I met him, what I told him is, you're going to pardon me, because most times when you speak fast. You have to please help me to adjust. And most time when he talk, I say pardon. And I think I started learning with him, but not really. Even to the extent when I'm in the lecture room, when lecturers are speaking, I don't understand what they are saying. I can be to be sincere, when I came in, I understood 100% of what you said. When she was talking, I can say 20% of what you said, and the other people. So I want to know, how were you able to overcome those things when you came in? Because I heard most of all, when you're talking, you'll be knocking their head. Sometimes I would just say yes, just to let them go, you understand? I don't know what they are saying. So I want you to please enlighten us to know how you were able to overcome those kind of things when you came. Thank you so much.
Please give her a microphone.
No, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I should know better. I work, somebody who works with us a lot. He gets a lot of people saying, I don't understand you. But sometimes before they've even listened to what they just hear his accent, I don't understand you. And I said to him one day, does that bother you? Does that bother you when people say that? And he said, he's so flat. No, they're just not listening. But so, I'm really sorry. Speaking very quickly, it's just my nervousness. I should listen, and I should know better. But I don't mind you saying pardon 100 times, honestly.
Do I have to stay in the camera, or?
Yeah, the camera can see wherever you want.
Okay, so I'll just stand where I am. I feel the pain because I went through it. So I think that's the first thing, and I imagine that he's not the only one going through that. Language is important for communication, and without communication, there's no existence. And if you miss what is communicated, you can run with the wrong idea. So I first of all recognize that I have to understand the language so that the communication actually happens. Because without that, I can run afoul of anything. I could even be in trouble, or I may live less than what I have the capacity to achieve. So I totally understand, and I really empathize, honestly. I think it's something I have overcome now, so I will tell you some of the things I did that helped me. I had a French supervisor at Dalhousie throughout when I was there. I thought I will understand the Frenchman better, actually, but I still couldn't. And I think that's because he actually speaks a lot of English alongside French. Compared to where we are right now in Ottawa, it's still a French-speaking area. I like the way those guys pick their words. You know, it's like, yeah, I feel you. We're all in trouble. Yeah, but this guy, I couldn't still understand what he was saying. But believe it or not, one of the things I learned to do with him when he's trying to tell me the projects that I had to work on, the research that time, I will ask him, is it okay if I record this on my phone? Not a video, but an audio. And he would ask me, but why? I don't want to be in trouble. Like, people just post things online these days. And I'll say, actually, the last time I met with you, I didn't understand a bunch of the things you said. Or I could not even remember. So I will record that and I will go back to it. You know, when you're sketching things, I'm good with pictures, but I need to connect it with the words, so I could connect it back with the words. And the other thing that I actually chose to learn also, so that's the first thing, you know. You could apply that method, record a session if the individual will allow you. I also learned that you need the consent of the individual, so ask for it. The second thing that I learned to do was to actually do what you're doing. Pardon me. Ask the person to slow down. Oh, ask the person to slow down. And the final thing that I will talk about, I'm thinking if I should, I think I can say it. I lived in the basement of a woman's home because I was renting the basement, and I lived in that basement I think for a year plus. And I was telling my wife this recently, and I said, I think that was one of the greatest blessings I have had in Canada, actually. Of course, my wife is the greatest blessing. But That's a great, great blessing I had in that period. She was a great older lady. She was about 70 years. She rented her basement to help augment a mortgage on the house. Luckily, she had actually trained international students as an English teacher over time. She understood the struggle. She's worked with international students. And she understood English. My mother was an English teacher as well. But here I am. I understand English, like you understand English. But how do I actually understand the way people speak? And the next thing also is, I wanted to polish my accent a little bit. I'm not ashamed to say that. I wanted to polish my accent because I realized that I will say something people don't understand what I just said. Let me give you a funny one. I went to Walmart. I was looking for pepper. But then I approached this lady at Walmart and said I was looking for Pepe. She said, Pepe? And then I was trying my best to describe Pepe, Pepe. Until I showed her a bell pepper. She said, pepper. I was like, say that again. Pepper. And I said, pepper. That's what I'm looking for. The lady that I rented her basement actually helped me. One of the things she taught me, she gave me a bunch of things to read. She gave me some audio materials to listen to on how to improve my accent. It helped me. I wasn't ashamed to ask. But one of the things I learned, just listening to her and how she taught me was that she said, you have to understand that speaking English is like a rhythm. And she would say, repeat after me. I was not a toddler. I was already over 30 years, and she's telling me, repeat after me. Without shame, I will repeat after her in the kitchen. At the kitchen island, I'm repeating after her. And she would say, oh, let's go sit down outside. Let me show you some more tricks and hacks in English on how to speak like a native speaker. And it really, really helped me. I'm sure there are a lot more things you can apply to help you understand. And if you also want to talk better so the people, it's not because you feel inferior about the way you talk. And you never know how far you will go in the culture and places you will be where you just you want people to understand you better. I am not hoping to talk as if I'm native. That's not my plan. I am not a native speaker. But I want people to understand me properly, and I want to catch things that people say the first time they say them. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
I just wanted to say that similarly to Emily, I am sorry. And two things. Well, one, that is a good reminder for us and to put that into our presentations, because I just get really excited and I'm also nervous. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, like yammering on and on a bit. But that's a good reminder for us to put into our presentations, a prompt for ourselves to not go so quickly. But also, I want to say to everybody, to you and everybody, just that I'm grateful for you for saying that, and to encourage people to do that. Say, hey, not catching what you're saying. Is it okay to slow down a little bit? And I'm fairly certain that anybody would welcome that request and try to do their best to honor it, right? So thank you very much for bringing it up. It's awesome.
And that can be done everywhere, in the class, at work, wherever. Especially in the class, you're paying. You're paying a lot of money to be in that school, so make sure you can. All right, so the next question.
So we have questions. We have 3 actually.
Before the online, we'll take the people inside here first.
This is it.
Okay.
For the library card, what is the requirement to obtain it? 1. 2, at what point can one venture into business? And what does it entail, like startup, franchise, etc.?
Okay. That will be for Emily and Danny, I think.
For the library card, you don't need anything essentially except yourself in front of us. We do come into the library card. If you don't have a permanent address, you can give us a phone number. If you don't have a permanent phone number, you can give us an email address. If you don't have an email address that's currently working, you can temporarily use ours. We don't want you to have any reason not to be able to use our services, and we trust that when you do have more information, you will come back and give it to us. And that's only for us to call you if you have a book that comes in. So it's fairly easy. If you're coming to the Sydney Library, and because I am a familiar face from this, come and get me, or Erin is excellent too. She's another librarian there, but everybody's pretty friendly and we all play by the same rule book, I guess.
Okay. There's still a question there. Yeah. You did excellently well.
It's hard though, because we don't hear ourselves well. We don't hear, but I understand.
I think about this speaking, I think we just have to be ourselves, but just recognize when someone is trying to call your attention to it. Because, I mean, we don't have to be on the hot spot every time we have to speak. Like, okay, like, yeah.
Telling me, I don't know if this is appropriate. He was telling me that somebody was going to get the costume for Halloween, and he said Wesley's going to get his freak on, and I was saying, Pa, I don't think that's. I don't know what I don't know what you're trying to say. So yeah, anyway, I don't know why.
So the second question was, can you repeat the second question?
On the startup, business startup.
Business, yeah. So when can you start a business? As an immigrant. Okay. I actually took this slide out of my slides because there is an entrepreneur stream through the Nova Scotia Nominee Program, but it's difficult. However, the partnership does have lots of resources available that you're able to contact us. We have a business planner, we have local economic development officers, and people in that are able to provide that information to you. Is it yourself? Yeah. So there's lots of resources. So if you reach out to me, I can put you in touch with the other resources. But there is a stream. It's expensive. So it does deter a lot of people from immigrating through that stream because you have to have quite a bit of money on hand to qualify.
Is that what makes it difficult?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you would have to have a business plan with the province and stick to your business plan, but you have a timeline. It does make it very difficult if you don't already have quite a bit of money to invest and to make money. It's difficult.
Okay. Thank you so much. Still from within, question. There are hands here. You want to add to that? Okay, please, go ahead.
So at a part of the question says, at what point can one venture into business? You can start up a business as a student. You don't have to be a PR holder or, work permit to start a business. You can start your business even as a student. All you're required to do is you need to register it with the province. Yes, and that's at the registered stock company website, something like that. So you need to get it registered. And if you also need more, there's even an organization called CBDC that gives out loans to international students, to help you with the capital you need for your business. So that can also.
Sorry, Rebecca, would that be part of the program that the province now has for international students, the CBDC? That's a different ballgame.
It's a different
I wanted to
organization
please
altogether.
just talk a bit about that.
Yeah. So just the provincial funding that we get provides settlement services for permanent residents, folks who are on their way to permanent residence, like in process of application, refugees, and there's a few other categories, but temporary residents are not included. So we have separate funding from the federal government to do the international student work. It's not from IRCC because they also don't. It's from ACOA. So that's where we get the money to do the international student program, and that program encompasses, you know, the employment tours that we saw the pictures of, the community engagement pieces. Like, it's like all the settlement services of connecting you to what you need, answering questions, providing you information, but with these additional pieces specifically for international students of connecting to community, connecting to employers. You know,
So the funding is basically for your own services.
yes, but then CBDC are a separate federal organization. They're also funded by ACOA, funny enough, because it's an economic development service. CBDC, they have their business developers, so they have staff in Sydney who will sit down with you, help you develop a business plan. There's tons of programs, business programs you can go through that organization. And that's where they have the immigrant loan pilot program, where you can borrow, even as a temporary resident, like an international student, money, like Sonieri was mentioning. And we try to promote that a bit because it's a pilot, and if they get enough uptake, then hopefully it'll become permanent, right? Although I have heard the interest rates are terrible for the borrowing, so not necessarily everyone's, you know, like it would not necessarily be what everyone would pick. But we do have workshops with them and bring people in to meet them and teach about the programs and services that they provide. And just to say, Sonieri is a business owner, I mean, everybody here probably knows, Delicious African Kitchen. So she's a good resource too, to folks that are interested in starting a business.
Okay. So questions on this side? Do we still have questions here?
When you talked about what the settlement program means, I wasn't sure. Yeah.
An amazing question, thank you. Settlement services is essentially anything that would help you to feel settled in your new community. Because like, as you were saying, there's so much to take in when you come to a new country. There's like culture shock and shocks, all these different shocks that you're like new systems that you have to navigate. So settlement services just mean support with navigating those new systems, like the healthcare system, the tax system, you know, government forms, things like that, to social events and connecting you with community organizations. It's kind of a broad list of things that we can do to help you feel more connected and more settled in your community, I guess you'd say. That's what I would define settlement services as. I don't know if that's the technical. Oh, the settlement plan? So with the AIP program, I'm happy to answer this, but you may have stuff to add to it. The AIP program, the process, it's an employer-driven program, so you have to work for an employer that's designated with the AIP program to go through the PR process through that program. But a part of that process is the settlement plan. So you work for an AIP employer. You get an offer of employment, it's a federal form that your employer has to fill out to say, here's your offer of employment. Once you have that, you can come to us with a copy of that offer of employment and your employer's designation, like AIP designation, and then we complete your settlement plan for you. Once you complete that step, that goes back to your employer, and they send that to the federal government, and then you will, through that process, once that's completed, I think you would call that endorsement, you then would start the PR process. So the settlement plan is like a written document to figure out what you need, what you're already connected to, but what you might need so that you have access to us as a settlement support agency to make sure your needs are met.
So she talked about the difference between the PNP and the AIP, for example. And so when do you have to, for example, under the PNP, you have to work for at least 1 year in Nova Scotia?
Correct.
So
Also for the AIP, but the only exception for AIP is any international graduates from Atlantic Canada. So let's just say that we had somebody that was living in Cape Breton, but they went to school in Ontario. They wouldn't qualify for the work experience exemption. They would have to work that full year, 1,560 hours, or have that experience. Like, there's so many layers to immigration, I could talk about it all day. But you would need the work experience if you're not a graduate from Atlantic Canadian University for AIP. For the provincial nominee program, again, you still need that year experience, but it doesn't have to be in Cape Breton. It needs 1 year in the last 5 years of that particular tier. But again, there's exemptions.
So with the AIP, you can get started today and get an offer today
Yes.
and submit that today.
If you are a graduate from Atlantic Canadian University, yes. You
Oh,
don't
that's
need any
interesting.
work experience.
That's
And-
interesting.
Yeah, and going back to the settlement plan as well, it's just another document that the provincial government wants. Because even though we're endorsing individuals that live in Nova Scotia, it's also used to immigrate from different countries. So although a settlement plan is still important, it's very important to those individuals that are moving from Nigeria or moving from different countries and don't know anything about the area. So that's why it is mandatory. It's also mandatory for the employer to take what's called intercultural competency training. So that is also offered by the provincial government to really help employers here in Cape Breton and Nova Scotia learn different things about different cultures so they can be very inclusive. So they've done a lot of work on this program, and it does help a lot of newcomers and kind of feel welcomed in their jobs. So, yeah.
Thank you. We have some questions online, right?
Before the online, we have here, I believe this was answered, but is the library card free for everybody or students alone? That's for Emily. Is the healthcare service cover for family or students alone? When you said international student support, do you mean all people in Canada? All people in Canada. So, and what is the volunteer covered? Don't know what that means. And then the last one is, how do you know if an employer is a designated employer for your PR pathway, or how can they become one?
Is the card free?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. It's free for everybody. Everything that we offer is free, except for printing. And we always tell people who come into Sydney that printing is 20 cents a page for us, but if they go just across the road, CBU offers students 10 cents a page because they have a bit more money for that, for students. But yeah, everything except for printing is free. So that's the major cost you get.
Is the healthcare service covered for family or students alone?
It's a very interesting question, and there's some discriminatory stuff in there, and it's really crappy, and we're advocating for it to be changed. But MSI, like provincial healthcare coverage, which means your healthcare that you need to obtain is free. You can, if you are an individual international student coming here and you do not come here with a spouse or family, you can't get health coverage until your 13th month in the province. If you come with your spouse and your kids, your spouse, as an open work permit holder,
Can get out immediately.
can get MSI right away, and you are considered their dependent under their MSI card. So if you come with your family, like your wife and kids, your husband and kids, you are all covered right away. But if you're an individual, you wait 13 months. And we've seen people with $17,000 bills because they had a baby. They didn't know they were pregnant when they came to study, and now they're saddled with this ridiculous debt. And so we have a report coming out that is we're going to sent to the government to be like, stop it, just give everybody health care, please. I'm sorry, I'm talking really fast because I'm really mad about it. But anyway, but that is the eligibility. If you're an individual student, you have to wait 13 months. You will still have coverage. The university requires you to have coverage, health
But that
coverage.
does not cover a lot of things.
Like, yes, exactly. Like
Yeah.
pregnancy.
No, it doesn't.
It does cover pregnancy if it happens, if the conception happens in Canada.
If the spouse is not
But
here.
if it's not, but if you come here pregnant, you didn't know, then you end up with this massive
If
bill.
the spouse is not here, how is it going to happen?
That's a story for another day. What's the other one? No, unfortunately, just folks who are in Cape Breton. International students in Cape Breton can access our services. We actually had a gal from Ontario at Mohawk College call us yesterday, and we, we get calls. We often get calls because immigration is in our name. They're like, "Hi, is this IRCC? I've been trying to get a hold of you for months." And we're like, "I'm so sorry. We don't have access to your file. We are not IRCC." But for international students, we provide those supports for folks at CBU or NSCC, or like there's other designated learning institutions. I think Cape Breton Business College is designated as well. So any international student in Cape Breton can access our supports. And to say, thank you for reminding me, all of our supports are free as well. And we do have printing for free.
Also, in addition to...
But there's like a schedule for it because it can be a gong show sometimes. So, yeah. hope
So
that answers the
I
question.
want to just follow up on something. So, and this is what I've been saying to people, but I just need clarity on that. So if there is a student here and the spouse is on a open work permit, for example, and then, so that means they can get, after working for 1 year, they can get PNP, for example. So
the dependent becomes the applicant. Yes.
So after that, so what that means is, for example, if I were to go back to school now, I mean, the fee is relatively low for me. Now, so what happens to that international student now that the spouse is now considered or even already having PR? And that person came in originally as a student. So what happens in that case?
So, let's just say that I came over as a student and then my spouse would be my dependent. But I'm studying, my spouse is on an open work permit, they work the 1 year, now they qualify for PMP. So now the spouse becomes the applicant, me as a student, I become the dependent. However, the amount of time that it's going to take for immigration, the student will be graduated, usually. Because it's usually a 2-year program, right?
Because I've seen also undergraduate student here,
I
people that are mature student, but they
Yeah.
decided to, I mean, there are all kinds of people where people are coming from, like agency.
Yeah.
They just want to do anything to get their own money from them. So sometimes you see someone that should be doing like a postgrad, coming in as an undergrad, right? And coming with a spouse. So what happens in that situation?
So I guess the answer to the question is as soon as that family unit becomes permanent resident,
Yeah.
they have access to the education monetarily as any other Canadian citizen would.
Okay. All right. Do we still have questions? Okay.
This question is for Becca. The volunteer opportunity you spoke about, how do they know about it and how do they join?
We will, for Hello Cape Breton specifically, we will put out a call on our Facebook and Instagram to ask people if they would like to sign up, but anybody who's interested can come by the office or send any of us an email. All of our emails are on the website. I'm sure everybody can grab Sonieri's too or mine and say you're interested to volunteer, and we will follow up and have like a kind of a gathering to figure out who's going to do what prior to the festival. Yeah, so just email us. And we are also sending out lots of other volunteer opportunities for international students, like pretty regularly to our mailing list. So if you're interested in other opportunities, let us know and join our mailing list, and we share those out too.
So in addition to that, we found out yesterday that the Sydney Curling Club, they're having their World Cup. So the World Cup of Curling Association is happening in Sydney in February, and they're currently looking for volunteers. So if you want to meet Becca, the second to last one here says, how do you know if an employer is a designated employer for your PR pathway, AIP especially, or how can they become one?
So this information is available for free online. All you have to do is type in AIP, which stands for Atlantic Immigration Program, designated employers, and it will bring you to a list. Now the list is not super user-friendly because it has all 4 provinces in alphabetical order. So you can't just see what is in Cape Breton, unfortunately. But if you're looking to perhaps get employment at a particular organization, you can like alt find. I think that's what it is to find. Yeah, you can search and find that organization. Otherwise, you would just have to look through the list. It's updated once a month, so it's public information. Now, to be designated, the employer would need to fill out an online application. How that usually works is if they can do it themselves, that's great. Usually employers around here aren't super familiar with immigration, so that's where the partnership really comes in because our services are also free. They can contact me, I can walk them through the application process step by step, and then once they're confident enough, they're able to apply online. So that's how you become a designated employer.
Last question.
So this is the last question online. Can any company recommend me for PR, especially if the job not code is a skill very much needed in Canada? I hold a temporary spousal work permit.
Yes, kind of. Again, immigration definitely can, it has a lot of layers to it. It really depends on what particular job that you're working with. It depends on what employer you're working with. The employer needs to be in business for at least 2 years. It needs to have an X amount of employees. It needs to have a space that Nova Scotia Labor Skills and Immigration approves of. So it really all depends, but the majority, yes. Any organization can submit an application for you to be nominated through the provincial nominee program. But if you ever have any questions, they can reach out to me as well. I'm able to answer because each person's case is going to be different. So it's not all going to fit into one perfect answer. But yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. So last year we had cards from you and from the partnership last year. So can we have those cards so we can so everybody can have them so they can easily access? So the last thing I want to talk about is accommodation. So I don't know if any of, especially Rebecca, if you have anything on, I'm hoping to see, okay, I'll try to say this off the microphone so I don't put myself in trouble.
probably agree that any single meeting that we go into with any sort of government body is always surrounding housing. We meet with the Deputy Minister of Immigration annually, and the last couple of conversations did go around surrounding housing. I don't know if there's a quick fix to it. They understand that it's a problem. They know that people are being charged or lack of accommodations, but they know, but that's really all we can say, I guess. We don't know anything else otherwise.
Yeah,
than they
I
know.
mean, excuse me, I'll continue to do my part, but I'm just I'm just hoping that there can be a form of regulation in place. Because honestly, it's not funny.
It's horrific, and there is no regulation, and the system is for the landlords, not the tenants. And that's true most places, I think. Just to say that, the things that we do, I had a young woman from Nigeria email us before she arrived saying, like, what am I gonna do about accommodation? We used to have landlords that we had their names, we knew they were good.
We used to have
We
three in
would-
church, but we don't have it anymore
Yeah,
right now.
and-
Everywhere is filled.
And they said, stop giving out our numbers. We don't have anything to give anybody, and we're being inundated with calls. So we can't even give their numbers out anymore. So we have kind of like a list of resources that we send out, all of the local Facebook groups that have to do with Facebook, the CBU on-campus housing advisor. There's like rental listings there. There's that new Happy Pad app that the government paid like $5 million for to encourage people to rent out rooms. I think, you could maybe build a building for $5 million, but anyway. We send out these resources to say, here's what is available here. We would recommend you be on these sites with notifications set so that you're getting every new thing that comes in. As well, the CBU Students Union, for anybody incoming, will check an apartment for students incoming. They'll go to the place that you are wanting to rent, make sure it's real, because that's the thing, is a lot of students get scammed. You say, okay, I'll rent your place, here's my $500 damage deposit, and then it
Where's
doesn't
the space?
exist
Yeah.
when you get here. So it's a really, really terrible problem that there's not a lot that we can do to impact it necessarily ourselves, but we have a survey report coming out in the next week or so, and one of the recommendations is to the municipality to, at the very least, be actually proactive in responding to people's issues with their housing, because not only are people paying a ridiculous amount, they're living in a house that the conditions are unsafe, and it's dangerous, and someone died in December in a house fire because you know what I mean? It's just so bad. So there's a lot of different people that have a part to play. We feel that the municipality can do better in being proactive about what's already existing. There is a 2% rent cap that is still in place since the pandemic, but that's
They
not
changed that now.
enforced.
Yeah.
No, it's still.
They
What?
changed that now. And now it's 5.
Yes. And then there is,
Till this December is still 2. The 5 start from next year. Okay.
yeah, so, but that's not enforced, obviously, because if people are paying $1,000 for a room, it's egregious. But then also,
Oh, I just wanted to tell you, there's, I feel it's New Dawn, recently put out a CBRM Tenants' Rights Handbook. There are copies available at the library and other institutions in town. And it is one resource that you can use to help you stand up for your own rights when you're renting, because many people don't know what they can do about something. And although, that's not always going to be successful, it's empowering people who are renting, or it's trying to inform people who are renting what they can do about a situation, about a rent increase, about rent evictions. And I know if you're not even in a place that's not helpful to you, And something which is not to do with housing, but we recognize that everybody in our community is struggling right now with housing, the rising costs of everything. The library has we started a community cupboard. It's very well used. We have a little bit of money to put food into that community cupboard. It's one of about 4 cupboards in the community. So many patrons use it. We encourage people to come in and take from it. And just because you just don't need that extra concern of thinking about what snacks your kids will bring to school or something if you're worried about paying the rent. And so it's just a way of hopefully that could help. I know that's not to finding the place, but
Yeah, thank you so much. So, also, I want us all to be careful as well. There are some calls, you may get some call on your phone. Please don't just speak any call. Quite a number of them are just scammers. And also you get some messages on your WhatsApp and telling you to click a link. There is one job in Ontario in one place. There's no truth in any of those things. Once you clicked on any link, you're in already. So try not to click any link that you don't know. Even somebody was almost scammed, and this was from LinkedIn. So yes, saw the position on LinkedIn and tried to apply and all that. So the way I was looking at it, everything was just so fast, so fast. I was like, no, this is not real and all that. Interestingly, I tried to trace if it was a registered company. So we discovered that there was a registered company that the name was very, very similar to that one. So they do all kinds of things now. So as a newcomer, just please be very careful and watch the things that you want to do before you do them. At least share with somebody and let someone that's been on ground, give you a piece of advice before you just go on. I want to say a very big thank you to our resource persons, starting from Danny, from Emily, from Rebecca, and to Afalari. Thank you so much. Every year we've been having this session, and I must say that this year is even more impactful, even though the weather kind of affected. You saw the crowd last year at the other place. Yeah, it was packed last year. But the weather, of course, this year, I'm sure, that's part of it. Check your weather before you go out every day in Canada. Check very well before moving out of the house and all that. Just check. Don't do hearsay or somebody says something, because that's why most people are not here today for it, because somebody told them that, there is one storm that's coming, that kind of a thing. But again, thank you so much, everybody. I'll leave you to just interact. We've come to the end. Danny and Rebecca, they will share their cards. So if you want to contact any of them, and if you want to see them one-on-one even before you leave, if they are still available, you can quickly do that. And Folarin as well is still here. Folarin is going to be ministering in service tomorrow by the grace of God. So, but feel free to just interact together and just, talk together. So let's have a word of prayer. Let's rise on our feet. So, do I speak fast? Actually, I've been told that I speak fast. I'm serious. So, what I'm trying to bring out with that is communication is always going to be relative. What's fast for you will be slow for this, what's slow for you will be fast for this person. Interestingly, I'm not trying to be racial here or something. It was the Caucasian that told me that you're too fast. Yes. So I think it's just relative, and and this has to be while I was preaching here. So if you don't understand anyone, just tell them to slow down, especially for I'm still open, and okay, I'll say this also off the microphone. microphone. But I can defend that anywhere. It doesn't matter. Father, we just want to thank you for this evening. We give you all the praise for what you have done here today. Thank you for using Folarin, Rebecca, Emily, and Danny to be a blessing to us today. Lord, we pray that all the things that we've heard here today, they will be to our advantage in the name of Jesus. We won't go through anything and regret not putting to use anything that we have heard here today in the mighty name of Jesus. As all these people will go back to their various homes, oh God, Lord, I pray that you please preserve and protect each and every one of us in the mighty name of Jesus. We still remember those that are being impacted by the storm right now. We pray, Lord, that you please comfort them in every way that they need it in the name of Jesus. Thank you, Father, for answer prayers. In Jesus' mighty name we've prayed. Amen. Feel free to interact and talk with each other. God bless you. Thank you. See you next year.
Mighty again. In the mighty name of Jesus. If there is a place where you have been